Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Electric Climate. I'm Sequoia, and today we're going to talk about the Phanteks Evolv X2 PC case, which is the PC case that I have over here. And spoiler for the title of this video, yes, I think this is definitely the coolest PC case of 2025. I bought this case and built the PC back in April of this year, and this was actually my first PC build. I will link here and in the description the video that I made about my whole build process if you're interested in kind of more of an overview of all the different parts, because I'm not going to talk too much about that in this video. I'm also going to insert in this video some footage that I took when I was doing my original build, just so that you can see the case without all of the parts in it and kind of as it's getting assembled. So far, I've been really happy with this case. Obviously, it's a really beautiful case, but the functionality also doesn't disappoint, so I don't really feel like there is a sacrifice with choosing a case, this one, for aesthetic purposes and then losing out some of the functionality. The case comes in two different colors. There is this white color here, and then they also have it in black, and both have the brushed aluminum. So with the white case, obviously there's this silver brushed aluminum, and the black case has more of like a steel dark gray brushed aluminum. There is also a price difference with the two colors. So right now on the Phanteks shop, I believe that the white is $176 and the black is $165. So it's about $10 more expensive for the white case. The highlight of this case for me has to be the glass panels. I just think it's the most unique case that I came across when I was looking at cases for my PC build. And once I saw this case, I knew that this was the one that I wanted to use for my build. I think that the kind of look through with the three glass panels is just a really nice aesthetic look. I think the glass panels give it just its own unique aesthetic vibe, but also kind of create this nice showcase for the parts that you have inside your build. If this wasn't my first build and a budget build, I would have loved to put some flashier parts, like a nicer GPU, maybe a Founders Edition in here, but for the performance and the price that I paid, I'm really happy with this build, and I think it looks great too. In terms of what fits into this case, it supports ATX, mini ATX, and micro ATX motherboards, and you can also use it with a eATX motherboard up to 280 millimeters. It does also have cutouts in the metal behind the motherboard, so it is compatible with some rear-facing ATX motherboards. For the GPU, you can fit up to 380 millimeters long and 170 millimeters wide. It does have a GPU sag bar, which I am not taking advantage of in this build, but I think it's a really nice aesthetic touch. They definitely didn't skimp on the materials here. They used that really nice brushed aluminum. So I think that that's a really nice touch. If you have a longer GPU, it is adjustable, so you can kind of move it up or down based on where your GPU is. They do sell a riser bracket that you can buy separately as well if you wanted to mount your GPU vertically. The case has 8 memory expansion slots. There is a bay underneath here, right here. This is where the power supply is. And then under the fans here is an expansion bay, and there also is a bracket behind the motherboard where you can mount additional SSDs. The top of the case up here is where the power and reset buttons are, and then on the front here we have 2 USB 3.0, a USB-C, and an audio jack. The rest of the I/O is on the back of the case, which is this part here, and there is some built-in Velcro for cable management, which I think is really nice. So next, let's talk about cooling. I've actually been really impressed with the airflow and temps that I'm getting with this case. There are 3 intake fans on the bottom, 3 exhaust on the top, and then 1 more exhaust on the back. For all of those fans, you can use either 120 or 140 millimeter fans, and you can fit up to a 360 millimeter radiator up at the top. Phanteks is calling the design of this case a floating chassis because there's these 4 legs and then the base underneath, which is completely solid. And there's a pretty good clearance between the bottom of the fans and this base, which means that you'd get really good airflow in here even if it was like on the ground. High case temps were definitely the biggest concern that I had going into this PC build because I used kind of budget parts. The fans that I used were $5, and I used an air cooler for the CPU, which was also a budget part. But so far, all of the temps have been really great. I haven't been getting any hot temperatures even when I am gaming. I'm not sure about the longevity of these items, but in terms of just cooling performance right now, everything is working great. Another one of the features that I really like about this case that I think is kind of unique is the built-in RGB lighting. So there's a strip up at the top that you can't see right now, and then there is a strip down along the side here inside the glass in the aluminum, and it's really easy to sync this up with any of the other ARGB parts that you have. I used a fan hub in this build, and I just plugged the header into the hub and everything syncs up perfectly. The software that I use for my RGB is the Signal RGB software, and everything syncs up well. The tone of the built-in lighting is more similar to the fans that I have, whereas the Corsair RAM with the RGB in my case is a bit more of a saturated color. As you can see, everything is set to be the same color, so there is a little bit of a tonal difference there, but the built-in lighting I would say matches the fans very well. Obviously, nothing is perfect, and even though overall I really love this case, I did want to quickly touch on some of the challenges that I had with the build. The really big one for me was cable management. Because there is a pane of glass on the rear side, the case has this metal closure for the cable management compartment, and there's really not a lot of space to work with in there. I think obviously this being my first build, I can chalk a lot of my struggle up to just being a beginner and not having great cable management skills. However, even with that being said, it did feel like it was just a really tight fit back there, and I know that they're trying to maximize space in the front so you can use a bigger CPU cooler or GPU, but I would have loved even just like a couple extra centimeters. I had a really hard time even getting the door closed. If you're thinking about this case as your first build, or if you just struggle with cable management, just keep that in mind. I definitely wouldn't let it deter you from getting the case, but just try to, as you're doing your builds, be as tight as possible with the cables. This is definitely a wish and not a problem because it's purely aesthetic, but I do wish that they'd put another one of those panels that they have on the rear side for cable management on the back, covering up all of the I/O. I know that this is not a need, but it's something that I would have loved to see just because it's such a nice looking PC, and the way that I have it standing up when I'm walking into my office and I come in this way, I can see the whole back of the case. So it would be really nice to just have another one of those pull open doors because it's pretty easily accessible. So I don't feel like it would have blocked the cables or anything. It would have just made it look clean 360 and would have been a really nice touch. If you have any questions about the case that I didn't answer, definitely leave me a comment down below and feel free to ask any questions. I'll do my best to answer them. Thanks for watching and supporting my channel, and I'll see you in the next one.